such an interesting question, because you'd have to define sexual harassment in and of itself, and that can be anything from like a mild transgression to like full-on assault.
I'll describe it as not being well understood.
Rape culture is really embedded into Freshers Week. It's disturbing how many people have been drugged in Freshers Week. Like,
I would say at uni it's something that is almost expected, because like the way that the uni bubble is set up.
Sexual harassment at university is basically when someone crosses a boundary. But then again, I feel like at university, because you're so young and most of the time very vulnerable, you don't really know what the boundaries are. You just know that someone's touched you and you just feel, oh, am I overreacting for saying anything?
I think most of my experiences happened in the dark, in clubs, groping, touching.
it goes from minor things to huge violent acts, and people aren't really aware of what it actually means.
We had drinking societies at my university college, and they had a Finger a Fresher campaign. Obviously everyone knew it was absolutely terrible, but everyone just sort of accepted it as being part of, you know, the inebriated forms of traditional courtship.
I think people have different ideas about what the boundary is. Even I think when I started university my first year, I didn't have a very clear understanding as to what that line was.
Women are still made to feel like if a man touches them without consent, it's a privilege, and these things aren't a compliment.
Groping is not okay.
No.
I don't know why we even have to explain that.
No.
Kind of, and not really. I think the great thing about my uni at the time, they had like a mental health advisor, which is like really great and amazing and everything, but mental health is such a big spectrum of things, and sexual violence in universities is such a big thing that I feel like you need to have somebody specifically for that.
I knew where to go for support, but I knew that the support wasn't adequate. Again, the racialized aspect was very important to me. As a black woman, I feel like being able to tell my experience to another woman that looked like me is very, very important. So there were times in which I knew that the counselling service at our university was just essentially not diverse, and that essentially puts a lot of people off even going ahead to talk about certain things.
Right now, when I think in retrospect, I know who to officially go to, and that would be my pastoral tutor, but we only saw them a handful of times throughout the year. I wouldn't exactly turn up and knock on their door and, you know, feel like I could talk to them if something had happened to me.
I knew of the guidelines that was put into my freshers pack, but I didn't know how to actually implement that practically. As to whether I thought those were the most appropriate for some of the things that I experienced or any other people experienced, I think is another story. Again, what do you report? Do you report full-out sexual harassment in which someone just gropes you, or do you report, you know, a comment in a club which may, you know, for some people be just as, you know, devastating.
When it comes to UK universities and they have all of these consent workshops, I think it's all very good and well, but I think perhaps they are too little too late.
Yeah.
I think all of these consent workshops needs to happen in schools, it needs to happen way early, it needs to happen at home. I think we need to start talking about consent, and even not just consent, enthusiastic consent.
Massively.
Yeah.
Hugely.
Yeah, the racialized aspect I think is very much, you know, understated across institutions, especially higher education institutions in the UK.
We're just more demonized in society, so we kind of have to do that extra work as a black woman to be heard in society, to be seen in society.
Black women are fetishized as these, you know, Jezebels who are just always wanting sex.
Yeah. When a lot of the compliments aren't, they wouldn't necessarily be viewed as being negative, so it would be shrouded under the fake facade of being a compliment.
Your hot chocolate body, or
Like, I've never tried a black woman before.
Saying that they've never experienced a black girl before.
Or we're sassy.
Comments like that are far too common in first year, and often are neglected by the institution because they just feel like that's banter.
I think as black women, we're often expected to just carry on no matter what.
in a relationship setting, if I were to report that I've been sexually abused by my partner, then there's always that, has he got a criminal record, instead of focusing on the matter at hand and make it an irrelevant topic when I'm here trying to report something that's happened to me.
And that's because there's no one in higher education institutions on the boards high enough that basically look like me. So most of the people that are actually creating this are, again, white.
It's terrible that it happens in a wider society, but like university should be a safe space. It's not a safe space for minorities, and it's definitely not a safe space for black women.
Unfortunately, with black women, we have that stereotype of, where we cry wolf, or, where we kind of, talk too much, or, so no one tends to believe us when we actually go and report it. So that's just the saddest thing about it. So that kind of deterred me from going forward more than anything.
If I feel like I can't relate to you, then how am I supposed to tell you that I'm going through this and this is what happened to me?